Welcome back, everybody. So today is a very, very, very special episode. I think it's an episode that is actually going to blow your mind. Um, Today, we're going to dive into hacking, ethical hacking, and a really cool system called Humanic AI. Welcome back, everybody. And on this episode of Logistics Life, we're going to take a little bit of a different turn here. I'm sure all of you have heard of some of the stories we've heard about pirates coming in and hacking a system and holding logistics companies, trucking companies for ransom, for very large ransoms, actually, or else they're going to release all their customer lists or they're going to seize their systems and things are going to go down. Today, I've got Niraj Singh with me. And Niraj, very interesting story here. Niraj is what we call an ethical hacker. And, it's interesting because I asked him what was an ethical hacker. I don't know about all y'all, but I just started watching the Sean Ryan show and he had an ethical hacker on that was literally identifying pedophiles and stuff in seconds and just taking them down. So I'm really excited, Niraj, to get into this call with you today because I'm a tech geek myself. But I'm very curious to see how exposed we actually are in this world when it comes to tech. I mean, sitting at the local Starbucks, jumping on their Wi-Fi instead of doing it from your cell phone. And so I've got a couple of different questions for you, but if you can, just share with the audience who you are, where you came from, and we'll go from there, my man.
Absolutely, Dan. Thanks for having me. Really excited to get this topic in discussion. I think ethical hacking, selling, what I do as of now. So how I started as a whole, I'll tell you my story. I'm a techie. I've done my computer science engineering. I'm a bachelor's. Then I did Oracle DBA certification. I went into DBA and then I thought, you know what, let me actually get my hands dirty in hacking. And then I applied for ethical hacking certifications. I did multiple certifications.
Whoa, hold on. So you actually have ethical hacking certifications?
I do have multiple certifications. Cool. Yes.
Okay, go on. Sorry.
Yeah. Perfect. No worries. So, Steve, if you're enrolling in any kind of activity, you should know how to be safeguarded, especially when it comes to hacking, right? Because every country has different kind of rules. I come from a country called India. When you come and say hacking, even if you put the word ethical in front of it, they would say this person is doing something illegal. They don't understand the ethical word, right? All right, so getting back to my story, I did my certifications, but one thing I always wanted to do is talk to people, have some human connections. And the way our ethical hackers operate in the world is they sit in silos with their laptops, with their systems, with their high-end systems, let me rephrase that, and then they just do their work, right? So then I turned into selling. I always wanted to sell, so I switched my career into selling. And I always relate. Currently, I'm working at Humanic AI. I'm the sales lead at Humanic AI. We believe in the buyer-first kind of a technique wherein you can connect with people the way they want you to connect, not the way how you would like to connect with them. And I relate with that a lot. And I simply say, hackers and sellers are very similar, which we can touch base on when we discuss, but I can deep dive more into it. I think that's
I'd like you to dive right into it. I want to know how hackers and salespeople are similar. I really am interested in this.
See, I'll tell you one thing, what hackers are doing at the moment, right? I won't call them hackers. They are wannabe hackers. Let me rephrase that. Okay. What they do is they have learned some quick techniques, right? Back in the days, let's say you go back 15 years ago, if you want to be a hacker, you would read books, need to go online. Now, going online was difficult at that time also, by the way. 15 years ago, there was very less content related to hacking or cybersecurity. Let me rephrase on that front. Now, you go on Reddit, you go on YouTube, and there are wannabe coaches also that simply comes and say, I can teach you hacking in 3 months. Take a pause over there. Let me simply address it to the students, the ones who want to get into the field. You can learn the basic techniques from there, but the expertise needs to come within yourself. If you want to become world-class, you need to put in the efforts. You need to do a lot of stuff that a hacker does. Going back to the point, what I was saying about wannabe hackers, There's so many topics that we know about the current industry, be it logistics, be it any industry that is not tech savvy. Let me rephrase that. Tech
Mhm.
savvy. Let's say I'm running a company, I don't have a tech consultant at all, right? And there's a person who randomly came on my live chat, on my website, on the support email and said, Dan, I recognized 4 files on your system, right? Which is actually showing me what kind of clients you have, what revenue you have, and what are the main stakeholders. Should I leak it with your competitors? And a person who doesn't understand this will be first of all taking a pause and trying to understand who is this person. Okay. Then the natural question is always, who are you? What's your aim? What's your intention? They'll come back and say, my intention is nothing. I just want some money, right? You need to pay me $3,000 by tomorrow night, or else I can leave one more data set that I have found on your database, right? It can be about the clients, shipments and stuff like that. It can be anything
Yeah,
about that.
we've had that many times in logistics where
Yeah, yeah,
they'll come in and they'll like pretty much seize the entire operating system so the company can't work, because I think it's evolved, and I mean, I'm sure you're aware of it being in the position you are. It went from that, well, we've got your customers list, we'll leak your customer list, and that was horrible, but they can continue working. So there was negotiation, and then gives them time to get things and backups and all that, and firewalls in place and all that. And now it's moved and it's escalated. I think, like anything, right? It started where people would Slim Jim your car, and now they clone your key fob. You know what I mean? Like, so I think the evolution is always growing. And now what they're doing is they're literally like seizing the entire operating system until money's wired, and it's usually done in Bitcoin, so it's untrackable, right?
absolutely.
And so I mean, I think we all understand what goes on. My bigger question to you, and the question I'm burning to get answered here, is how vulnerable is the average company? Because in logistics, right, we look at it, the majority of our foundation, if you will, is smaller companies. Like, the amount of smaller companies trumps the amount of bigger companies by 50 to 1. Right. So, you look at some of the bigger companies, like the big brokers of the world, the multi-billion-dollar brokers who have like, $1 million+ a year IT department and all that kind of stuff. Are they less likely to be hacked than the small guy, or are they really the targets?
Let me ask you, have you seen servers going down? There was the latest Microsoft outage, right? That we
Yes.
saw, I think, a few days ago. We have seen the big companies' data also get leaked, right? And we've seen that. I've saw Domino's data get leaked. I've seen some reports of WhatsApp data getting leaked and stuff like that. So, is the average company safe? You can imagine no, right? But how to be safe, right? For us as an individual, for family, we have insurances. But for company, how you can be insured in these terms is the basics. We always forget the basics. And
Hmm.
let me tell you, 70% of hacking happens offline. It doesn't happen online. That's a very surprising fact, but nobody understands that part, right? Is because let me just bring you a scenario how a normal average company would work.
Hmm.
They'll have pen drives, they'll have external data sources that can be easily plugged in into their systems, right? And hackers operate in different ways. Let me tell you that it's not the one way that they operate in because they don't have face, right? That they would say, oh, you know what? I'm a seller, so I'll just do revenue, I'll just sell. No, they're not like that. They wear multiple hats, right? They'll just simply transfer a file called RAT in your system. They can transfer the files. They have your offline, online access of your system. Whatever you type, whatever keystrokes you do, spaces you hit, they know everything now. Okay. What they do now is they wait. They don't come and say, oh, you know what? They're not excited yet. The only thing that excites them is Bitcoins, cryptocurrencies, in short, money. right? They'll wait. They'll try to see what kind of passwords you are using. And after that, they have algorithms. Everyone who's good enough hacker is trained on how they can deploy those algorithms and brute forcefully get into your system and get the database out, right? That's a job of a proper hacker, right?
So it's not
Who
as
is,
if you get hacked, the
yeah,
breach wasn't necessarily today. It could have been a month ago. It could have been 2 months ago. It could have been whenever.
it's never on the same day or in the same week also. It's never
Got
like
it.
that,
Okay.
right? So it's just like a disease that you don't know. But let's say you have some symptoms, and then you go to the doctor and say, I've been facing some symptoms, and you take some tests, and then you're like, okay, over here, you don't even have symptoms. That's the problem. Okay. But the problem is, it suddenly comes one day, and it's like a stroke, right? Like your system gets down. There can be multiple scenarios. Coming back to the point when you said their operating systems are down, their servers are down, going back to the basics, you're buying a database server which is cheap, okay, just to save some money. Because let me take as an example, as an average company would not like to spend on something that you feel is just existing. It's not like I require it in day. It's not like an IT company that sells online, right? It's like a logistic companies which has field workers. They have everything deployed on field. It's just for managing stuff. You buy a cheap server, I can simply, a random hacker can come and DDoS your servers. They just transfer large packets of, you know, simple packets of GBs of packets. Your server is down because they don't have a way to divert the traffic, right? That's the problem. You buy a good server, you make sure everyone's has a unique kind of a password with certain levels of security. It's very easy. We live in the world of chat GPTs. You can just ask chat GPT, what's a good password combination look like, right? It can suggest you some, but don't follow that. You make your own combinations by your
Hmm.
own way. Okay. Make that, do some due diligence, right, about how you basically get external files into the system, how you share your data online, what is the compliance. And it is cheap, by the way, in today's world. There's so many options that you can go for, which can make sure that your compliance piece is top notch. At least from the standard that a wannabe hacker cannot come and just, ask you for a ransom online just to pay and get their, dinner or whatever you say, a weekly kind of a payout, right? So that's the basic. In selling also, Dan, if I go back to the selling part, today's sellers are not doing the basics, right? They're doing all the high-end technical stuff. They use ChatGPT for emails and whatnot, research and whatnot. How many sellers do try to find and build that trust when they're talking to someone? Nobody focuses on trust and rapport building. Only a few of them focus. I'm not saying the whole majority does, but only few people like to be consultant rather than being a seller. Everyone
Mm.
wants to come on a call and say, Dan, let's sell this. Let's start today. Let's buy today. Right. Let's get this going. So that's my perspective on what the current world look like. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. So so then now we've got the dark side, right? So I call it the dark side in this, I call it the Jedi Knights. So now you're on the Jedi Knight side. You're the ethical hacker. So would and I'm just, and again, I'm ignorant to it and I apologize. Um, I saw on the Sean Ryan show that I was watching about ethical hacking, it was people that are using these skills to catch bad guys, not necessarily hackers, but bad guys in other fields and stuff, and hackers as well. But it's opened up this whole world. So what brought you from that world over to being head of sales at Humanic?
I'm head of sales. I'm a sales lead, by the way. Head of sales is
Sales
somebody
lead.
else. But
Yeah.
right. Uh, See, I'll tell you, again, that space is a very competitive space. I could not have survived, I'll be honest, right? Uh,
Really?
Absolutely.
Oh,
Absolutely.
wow.
The information I have, I think I'm a starter. Okay. If you play games, we use the term called newbie, right? Right. I'm a newbie in this field, right? I'll be honest. You see one hacker that is really top notch. He might be ethical and unethical. There's one that is better than them, right? Who's sitting okay over there. Uh, we, big companies, let me ask you this question, Dan. Big companies have security consultants, they have
Hmm.
in-house teams. Still, they are vulnerable. You know how much a security expert gets paid in a private company? I'm not even talking about governments, right? Governments have top-notch hackers, right? And I'll tell you a different story, but it's off record kind of a story that we can touch base on. Still, highest amount of money being paid to security. Everyone is going online. Business is happening online. Transactions are happening online. Big amount of transactions are happening online. Gone are the days you go and deposit money in the bank. Nothing happens like that in today's world, right? No
Hmm.
hard pass, right? Uh,
I would be interested to see what Amazon's security budget is, because I would think that
Absolutely.
would be insane. I mean, and to think, they own a lot of it, the space, and it would still be insane. So let me ask you this, Humanic, give us a rundown of what it is and how it helps salespeople be more productive.
And, we help salespeople be more buyer first. I would like to rephrase that. How it
Hmm.
helps, let me tell you as an example. We live in a world where we connect virtually. I've connected with you virtually. You don't even know about me as a person. Well, it's a 30-minute, 40-minute kind of a conversation. What are the chances that you'll remember me because you have 10 calls in a day, right? You have so many interactions that you're happening because of the online presence. What Humantic does in a simple word is, let's say, if I would have known you because I know a friend of yours and you are my prospect, what will I do now? If I know a friend of yours who's my friend, what will I normally do? My
You'd
first
call the
instance
friend
would be
and
I
say,
pick up,
"Can you connect us?" Yeah.
connect us, tell me something about Dan, how Dan is like, what motivates him, what doesn't motivate him. And that's what Humantic does for you, for everyone. Okay. What it does, and let me rephrase and stress on this again, is that in the rise of automation, when we saw COVID happen, automation was on high rise.
Yeah.
As a buyer, you receive 100 emails, how many calls? I don't even know, right? A day. Why is getting frustrated day in, day out, right? Why would a buyer pick up your call? Let's say they pick up your call. Good luck. It's a good thing. When why should they connect with you? Why will they be retained on the call? Why should they reply on an email? Why should they have a conversation with you against other vendors? Is because you're connecting with them as humans, not as your templated kind of sellers. How we
Hmm.
do that in simple words, we always like to follow this way, is sellers, buyers actually, let me go to the buyer side first. Buyers don't get paid to change their behavior while buying, they'll stay the same. Okay. But sellers get paid how they adapt to the buyer. And how we do is basically we have a personality, our engine is personality engine. That's the core of our engine called D.I.S.C. For the ones who don't know this, D.I.S.C is a personality framework, has been into the system for more than 60 years, uh,
Yep.
divides people into different kind of sets. What you do is, let's say you're a certain personality and I'm totally opposite to you. Chances of me, without knowing you, is I'll follow the way I want to talk to you and you don't even understand my word. Nothing
Hmm.
happens, right? Now I know that Dan is more of an aggressive person. He doesn't want people to talk a lot. He wants the control over the call. What I'll do as a seller, I'll give all those things to you. You'll feel more comfortable. You'll be like, okay, I can relate with this person. He was a good, I think he was a good guy. Let me talk to him again.
So you're
You
talking to
follow
me in
that.
my language instead of your language.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
now your software identifies people from like their email address or whatever, gives them a persona of the DISC persona fixture. And does it help them with, hey, you should ask this introductory question? Like, does it guide them through?
We actually analyze their LinkedIn profiles, by the way, if you're trying to understand how we get our data. We analyze their LinkedIn profile, then we pull up the disk personality. We help you with a lot of insights. Making a call. Let me ask you, Dan, the last time you made a cold call, right? Last time you made a cold call, did you ever give a thought that should I actually talk slow on the call today? Should be formal on the call today and not use cheesy openers? No, you didn't, right? Nobody does that. We give you insights like you're making a call to Dan, how you need to speak, what should be the tone, what should be the pattern interrupt, what should be the mistakes to avoid, all these things. Now your call is more
Mm,
personalized as per the personality. You get a lot of emails, Dan, right? Everyone uses salutations, greetings. That's the standard of cold emails. Hey, Dan, I hope you're doing well. Let me ask you, your dominant personality, Dan, let's say, right? You don't care about somebody asking you somebody greeting you on a weekday or let's say Monday or something like that. No, it's a cold email. I don't even know you, right? And for some people, it is important. We tell you the structure of the email and we help you generate those emails all across your Gmails, CRMs, outreach tools. We help you with team insights where there are multiple stakeholders. In short, Dan, it's from top of the funnel till the bottom of the funnel. We are with you and we make sure that you become more buyer first, more personalized. And one more important thing that we do is make sure you do a lot of research about the prospect before you even talk to them. That's very important to have a consultative approach rather than just going inside the call and saying, let's see what happens. Right. So that's
mm.
the thing that we do. Yeah.
That's very cool. Very cool. I think it's super cool the way you've, transitioned from one to the other. And I see them both as polar opposites. And I like the way you actually put it together where, it makes sense to me now. At first, I was like, I don't know if you, to everyone watching and listening, when I were off air, I'm like, how am I going to relate this back to the audience? Like, and it was really, but after you just said that, I'm like, yeah, okay, that makes total sense to me now. It really does. And I think, being able to gain insights in people. I mean, listen, as well as I do, everything in sales is meeting the prospect where they're at, where their head's at. Right.
Yeah.
And there is a huge disconnect in the world of sales where people are like, well, I sell this way. And it really doesn't matter how you sell. It's how your customer receives the message. Right. Because sales is a transfer of energy. It's really all it is. And
Yes.
if we can match the other person's energy, for me, it's I come in very high energy. I come in very excitable, and that works with some people. And some people are like, oh my Lord, I got to get away from this guy as fast as possible. And I get that. Some people like it, some people don't. Some people are like, whoa, Dan, you gotta slow down here, man. You know what I mean? And other people, it energizes them. And that's very cool. So if somebody were to be looking at a tool, a system like this, how could they get a hold of you?
Can come on a website, right? Simply log in, try the free trial, right? Dan, I think it's also important to understand where we are a good fit, right? We are a good fit at companies. Typically, sellers does this very big mistake that they feel everyone is a good fit because they have reached out to them, right?
Mm,
They're a good fit for the people who actually want to take a pause, research about the prospect, and then go in a meeting. They're not for the ones who want to do fast selling. And I appreciate the fact they might be doing that because it's working for their business, right? For
hmm.
that business, if we are not a good fit. We're actually number two, by the way, if you don't know, in the Northern American market, mid-market zone, on the adoption front across 300 AI tools. Number one is Salesforce, right? That's the big beast. We can't beat Trails this early, right? We're too small to beat them. But being number two as a startup, having I think around five Fortune 500 clients that work with us. The best part that typically it's the best fit that we normally have is the enterprise kind of selling because
Hmm.
they are the ones who requires these insights big time. So they can reach out to me at needers@humantic.ai on my LinkedIn, on website. I have no problems, right?
I'll
Uh,
put it in the
one
show
more
notes
thing,
as well.
absolutely. One thing I would like to stress on, and it's an important thing, uh, we are we have a lot of insights about the account, right? In today's world, there's intent data, there's a lot of things that we can get. So I typically break down this into two things. The need of the company. So everyone knows the need of the company in today's world because they're searching for some topics that you sell. But the problem is the want of the buyer that is always missing in today's world. Semantic AI basically helps you understand how you can tap into that want of the buyer, how you can basically relate more to the buyer, and buyer can feel, you know what, I think these persons are giving me the right way to go ahead with. Where you need to be more consultative. I think that's the best approach in coming worlds. Rise of AI SDRs, rise of robotic calls. We as humans will crave for human connections, let me tell you, in let's say two
Mhm.
years, right? There will be calls
Oh,
coming in.
I think
Yeah,
it's
just
coming
imagine.
so fast. I mean, it's interesting. Last week, I was having a conversation with a gentleman, and we were talking about how cold calls are
Yeah,
now almost a thing of the past. Very few
yeah,
people are doing cold calls. So many people are doing emails. And I reverted back to the conversation. I said, it's interesting because I think sales goes in waves, right?
yeah.
Now people are getting 50 emails a day instead of cold calls. And I saw when the switch happened, it happened during COVID because people didn't really know where their prospects were anymore, right? You'd call their desk, but now they're working from home. And, we saw a ton of companies. I mean, I'll speak to the logistics industry, but quite a few companies let people go because they didn't have the infrastructure to allow them to work from home, right? Um, there was a really big broker in the US that was all over the news for letting a ton of people go. And they just said, like, we don't have the infrastructure. Like, where are we going to get 2,000 laptops tomorrow to let 2,000 of our employees work from home? What about cell phones? What about this? Like, they just didn't have the infrastructure. So I think what happened when COVID hit was everybody turned to email, because even if you're not in your office and you're not answering your office phone, you've got a smartphone. You've got a laptop at your desk. So as a prospect, somebody that I would prospect, you were getting a hold of them via email. You saw a huge influx in social media. People were spending more time on social media. And I think it's changed now. I think it's reverted back to old school. And it's almost to a point where when you make a call and get a hold of somebody, it's refreshing because it's not another email they need to read. But on the flip side of that, email, if you look at the digital marketing world, email is still the number one tool for
yeah,
sales. So
yeah.
I look at it, Niraj, and I say, how do we get insanely good at whatever method we want to sell at? Right. And if you look at email, and the way I look at your software, and the way I looked at it was, this will help me get insanely good at crafting direct messages that resonate with the person I'm trying to get a hold of. Right. And even at that, if it can help me craft questions, understand the personality, when I'm speaking to the individual, I can adopt my questions, my tone, my influx in my voice. I can adopt it all to their direct processing system, that they will process that information better. And I think the speed in which you can get it done matters the most. So, for example, you would normally have to, if you were talking about the DISC method, you'd have, kind of that one page where D, and then this is the persona of D.I.S.C. And, you're looking at, and then you would go through their social posts, you would go through their LinkedIn profile, you would check their schooling, what they went to school for, because, accountants, they all kind of come into a different profile, the DISC profile, right? And you look at it and you're like, for me anyways, the process was, okay, 25, 30 minutes to do this. I make the call and they're like, well, we're under contract for a year, so call me back in a year. There's no way I'm getting business from them because they're under contract. And I'm like, well, I just wasted 30 minutes of my time. So to be able to do this in a minute or two, I think increases velocity, increases productivity.
Absolutely. See, I tell you, not even this, right? The rise of AI is also very important in the way we save time. We look at enterprise level research documents, you search about S10 reports about the companies, what the CEO has to say, relate with your solution and whatnot. That can be done within 2 minutes now. You don't need to employ a sales analyst or some, let's say, LDR that does it for you. Uh, to your point of saying, see, I'll tell you what I feel about the outreach in today's world. the omni-channel outreach is the best outreach. You can't simply say cold call or email or this will
I
work
agree.
with this person.
I agree.
The only thing that will work with the person is you catch the hold of the person, whether it be anything, social, LinkedIn, that is an important part that most of the sellers are not utilizing. Some are, but it's still early days. Emails and phone calls are done to death, right? With parallel dialers, you can make multiple calls, sequences.
Yep. Yep.
You know the sequence email that way when it comes to your inbox, right? You know it's a sequenced email. You
Yep.
don't even empathize with the email, even if it's selling a good thing.
Mhm.
So my only way in suggesting it to everyone that's out there trying to do productive kind of selling is we always try to make sure that, you know, people and sellers in our company try to do more in order to get numbers, right? But it's actually time to try to do less with good quality that will result in better results. Doing more is a default choice, but doing less is very difficult. So if you try to adapt that in the best possible way, I think that's what works for me, our organization, and most of the organizations we work for, and the ones which has adopted Humantic AI and the biointelligence space overall. So that is my take, and I think that is an important take in the way the future will shape up.